Welcome to My Turn Podcast, a gaming podcast hosted by extra competitive siblings. My name's Jem and I'm joined by honorary...
That's right. You certainly are. Otherwise known as Tim.
Welcome to My Turn Podcast. Deary me, I mess up the intro every single week. I think someone else should try it. Actually, last time Erin did try it. Anyway, I'm Jem. I'm joined by Tim. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I know. Oh my goodness me.
How are you?
What is going on? I'm all right. I've had some mulled wine. Can you tell?
Yep. It's very obvious with you, hun.
But it is December, so 'tis the season and all those things. How are you? It's been a while, Tim.
I'm good. I did some mulling myself, actually. The weekend just gone. Got on the mull. Got on the port. Got on some fizz. I've been doing all the seasonal beverages, yeah.
Had a mince pie yet?
I've had a mince pie. I've even had a mulled wine donut. Like, I'm really getting into it now.
Mate, you're really going 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get to Tim's Tasty Tipples later, I'll see if the festivities have slightly swayed your tipple pairings. But this is a gaming podcast, despite our love of food and festivities. So today we are going to be discussing two games that came out this year. They're both in domestic settings. Do you want to tell us what the games are, Tim?
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about 12 minutes. Hopefully for 12 minutes. That would be great. If I could nail just talking about 12 minutes for 12 minutes, it would satisfy at least me.
Oh, yeah. Why? Oh, no, what you should do is talk about it for 12 minutes and then talk about it again for 12 minutes and then again for 12 minutes.
Yeah. Which will make sense to everyone once they know what it's about.
And I am going to be talking about a game called Unpacking. So, do you want to go first, Tim?
Yeah, sure, why not? Okay, so let's get to the gag. 12 minutes is it's a point-and-click style adventure game, which has been published by Annapurna Interactive, who picked it up from an independent developer, Louis Antonio, who came from Rockstar Games, actually. This is like his little self-produced directed baby. It was released in its final form in August of 2021 for the Microsoft platforms, and it is coming to you on Nintendo Switch and PlayStations from December 7th of this year. So at the time of recording, not quite there yet.
Okay, and tell us about what the game is about. In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, it's a bird's eye view, murder mystery, time loop story set entirely within one flat. Can you imagine reliving the same period of time over and over again just within your home? Yes, you can. Yes, we all can.
Yes, we all can. It's kind of, I mean, I'm sure the development process started pre-COVID, but it's just kind of come out at a weird time where we all really know that feeling.
Yeah. As far as I know, the game design started around 2015. But actually, the voice artist did record while we were in lockdown. So some of that experience might have come through in the end performance, I feel.
Okay, so what were your expectations of this 12-minute on a loop game?
I suppose the expectations of a game like this were more built up by films than games. Because I have seen a lot of time loop films. On the whole, I enjoyed them. They tend to be, highly convoluted in order to try and make themselves seem cleverer than perhaps they are. But I do enjoy the unwrapping of the puzzledness of it. So I was expecting to see sort of references I would recognise, like, maybe Looper or Groundhog Day, or Happy Death Day, or things like that, where, you have to kind of keep choosing different consequences for different outcomes.
Yeah, and it's kind of become a sort of subgenre, hasn't it? Sort of Groundhog Day time loops.
Yeah, I think so. I think so, definitely. Because it doesn't just exist in the sci-fi genre, time loops. I think it's kind of tempting to think of it as a time travel thing, but actually, I think it often excels when it uses comedy for that sort of like existential eye on what does it
Yeah.
mean when you really make decisions. I think that's
Yeah,
when it
like Palm
excels.
Springs was a really good example of
Mm-hmm.
that. I don't know if you saw Palm Springs. Yeah, great. So, what is the gameplay like? How does this actually work?
Okay, so I'll start with a bit of story, but I don't want to tell you too
Okay.
much story because it gives too much away. So, but your character is a man who's walking in the front door of your apartment. This is where it all begins. Actually, film reference number one: as you walk into your apartment, the hallway carpet is from The Shining. That
Oh,
classic
okay.
carpet that we all recognise from The Shining.
Yeah.
So you walk in the front door where you are greeted by your wife. Your wife is played by Daisy Ridley in voiceover, and you are the other McAvoy, James.
Yes. Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, Tim's surname is also McAvoy.
Yeah, no relation. So you see your wife. She's eager to share some news with you. She tells you she's made a nice dessert. Let's eat the dessert, talk about the news. But a few minutes later, you're interrupted by a knock at the door. It is a police officer played by Willem Dafoe. And he says he's got a warrant for your wife's arrest. He enters the flat. Things start to go very pear-shaped very quickly. Before you know it, the loop is starting over again.
Okay.
So,
Just the fact that you mentioned Willem Dafoe and things going pear-shaped, I was like, does he get his willy out? Because...
I mean, I can't speak for how he recorded his voiceover, but not so much in the game. I don't know about you, but I always do my voiceovers with my willy out. My willy's out right now. So in the gameplay, with it being a point and click, there are objects that you can interact with, and there are conversation routes you can take. Those are the two main elements of gameplay in a point and click, right? Objects and conversations.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big twist in this point and click adventure is that every 12 minutes in story time, which I found tended to be around 10 minutes or so in gameplay, unless I did something specific.
Oh, so it's not real time?
No, because you can change the way things work sometimes.
Ooh.
So yeah, 12
Okay.
minutes. 12 minutes in gameplay. It might be. It's usually around 10 minutes. I found before it reset.
Sure.
Before you have to then do it all again. So in total, I think I spent about 6 hours on this game. Doing 10 to 12 minutes over and over again, but it felt a lot shorter to me because it appealed to my sense of really wanting to get this right. So I kept going. The other part of the gameplay is that you can't leave the apartment. So if you try to leave the apartment, the loop resets, which is why I say it's kind of like story time as opposed to necessarily gameplay. So you are definitely stuck in your living room, bedroom, bathroom, and closet. That's all you've got to play with.
All right. So
Yeah.
what were the positives for you? Was there any sort of standout positives, things you really liked?
It is the gameplay. The gameplay
Right.
is really fun. I mean, the thing about not being able to leave your apartment, for example, it's a big restriction on what you could, what you might want to do as a character. But it's also your biggest hint towards gameplay because you know that you must be able to solve this with things that are in the flat. And what that leads you to is to just keep experimenting with things. So you can try some pretty odd or pretty dark things just to see what happens. Which actually, there were a couple of times when I was like, I wouldn't ordinarily do that as a character choice. But it reminded me of like those moments in Groundhog Day, for example, where he just does shit because like, why does, it doesn't matter. Like, let's see what happens. So there's a bit of like sense of, are you sabotaging yourself or are you actually finding an interesting way forward? Because the thing is that you as a character, you retain your memory each reset. So you find yourself with different conversation options to try on the next playthrough. Although the situation and the objects that are at hand stay the same. So that's the really enjoyable thing is if I do this random thing, does it change the options I have next time in terms of what I know and what conversations I can unlock? That is the best thing. Fortunately, because you do replay this scenario so many times, they have thought to put a fast forward in for the conversations you've already had.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah.
That kind of thing can get really, really tedious otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, it's not smart enough to sort of anticipate which ones you necessarily want to run through. But there are some things that skip ahead and you can kind of, you can skip the conversation. So it's not quite as bad. It's not quite as mind melding as having to go through exactly the same thing again, which is another important reason why it's not 12 minutes in real time, because otherwise you'd kind of have to do that. So you don't have to. So yeah, the gameplay is really good. It has a sort of like Sims type setup where you sort of see them from above, rather than being immersed in it. And I actually liked that feel to it. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe it adds to kind of like the sense of claustrophobia, or that you're really kind of trying to see the bigger picture of everything that's going on. But I actually really liked the way that worked, even though it obviously came across as being much more cheap to make than if you were completely immersed.
Here's a question, because you referred to the male character as you. So to me, just looking at the artwork, it feels like that decision to be almost top down is a bit distancing. But did you not? You didn't find it?
Yeah, it is distancing. I quite liked that about it, because I feel like your puzzle mind needs a bit of that distance to think about how all the characters are behaving and what they're doing, even though you are only controlling one person. So that's why I say it's you, because you control them. But you have to understand everyone's kind of history and perspective and motivations in order to figure it out. So I kind of liked the way that balanced. Yeah.
Okay, nice. And then in regards to the puzzles, did you find them challenging enough?
Yes.
Yeah,
I did. There are some things that seem kind of obvious, but you might not be doing them at the right time. So
right, okay.
It's not like you could, for example, be a genius and figure it out on the first or second playthrough. There are things that you deliberately have to do wrong, for example. Which I think could cause some controversy, but there are things that you have to do wrong in order to find out some information that you can use to do it better the next time. So it means that the puzzle solving is sometimes quite exploratory. You don't know what's going to be revealed to you. There's a mystery behind all this, so you can't just sort of figure it out with logic. You have to press all the buttons you can and gather that information and try to piece it together gradually. So from a puzzling perspective, very satisfying, because you just have to experiment. And then the further it goes on, you start to kind of put things together and you get an idea of what direction you're headed in, but you're never quite sure what's going to come out of a character's mouth, for example, that will unlock a new pathway for you.
Yeah, and that sounds pretty satisfying, because as listeners will know, if they've tuned in before, Tim and I are both really keen on puzzle games. And, when they're not satisfying, when they're tenuous or just too bloody easy, it's just really annoying. Doesn't keep you coming back, does it?
I felt deeply frustrated at times that I couldn't figure it out, but I didn't give up. I was like, I need to know. I just need to know. Which is a great sign for a puzzle, when you don't sort of want to throw it away.
Yeah.
When
you go away, you're making a cup of tea and then you're still thinking about it.
Yeah. And in terms of the film vibe as well, I would say, despite the early Kubrick reference, it's much more Hitchcock in its feel, because it's contained within a flat. There's some mysterious backgrounds, phone calls, mistaken identities, and this consistent sense of suspense, because you know how it's probably going to end, or you like how you don't want it to end. So much Hitchcocky vibes, which is also very up my street. Yeah.
I like it. Speaking of what we like, let's also then flip it over. Was there anything that we don't like? Anything?
Unfortunately, yes. And I can sum it up by saying the word story.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the story is absolutely terrible.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a big negative.
Yeah, it's really, really terrible. So, what I will say first of all is, like, the voice actors, obviously you would expect them to do a great job. They did. of the individual
Although
dialogue
weird,
moments, but it's the
I thought, just for me, looking at it and going, it's American, because I watched the trailer.
Yeah.
But they're both British.
Yeah,
which I
it is
just found
American accents.
strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, just
yeah, it is American accents, but yeah, the voice acting is great. You know, the individual kind of bits of dialogue are fine, but it's the plotting. So the convoluted plotting that comes with time loop stories, unfortunately, has raised its head, and the story is not satisfying. The twist ending is terrible. I don't want to tell you exactly why, because that affects the gameplay. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where I guess the game designer was really wanted to experiment with this style of gameplay, and I think they did it very successfully. But I suspect that what they did as they were developing it was sort of have a framework of a story and never really perhaps revisited it to think, is this the best story I can tell? Or bring in someone who was maybe more experienced at storytelling. So unfortunately on that front, it utterly fails.
Such a shame.
Yeah,
and I haven't read too much about it because I don't like looking at too much before I play a game, and I did intend to play it, but I did hear a bit of whinging about some choices about the female character, just murmuring. So
yeah. I mean, yes, this is true, but it goes beyond that. It's the plot. Yeah. It's the entire plot of everything. Plot. It goes sort of beyond unsatisfying to absolute nonsense.
Right. Okay, well, on that note, Tim, was there any final thing that you wanted to say about the game? Anything that stood out that you haven't mentioned that you want to let people know before we move to recommendations?
Just that I think it's a really innovative game, which is always nice to experience, even if it's not perfect. I feel like it's opened up a really interesting style of gameplay, and I can imagine other game developers, particularly who are kind of story-driven and point-and-click, looking at this as a prototype for something they want to make in their own style, and I look forward to playing those games.
Great. Have you played Outer Wilds?
Yes.
Yes, because that does it well, doesn't it? Like the looping. Yeah. Anyway, I just wondered if you played that. Yeah, but it's the same concept. You have to sort of go again and again. You can't just solve it straight away. Anyway, I digress. Who would you recommend this game to, and do you even recommend it?
I definitely do recommend it, despite my absolutely scathing comments about the story. It's not it's not a huge game to invest in. I think you'll know when you start playing it if you want to keep playing it. You know, if you get through sort of 2 or 3 loops and you want to throw it out the window, fine, throw it out the window. It's not worth you completing if you didn't enjoy that much. But I think if you are someone who enjoys puzzles, I think you'll find it really addictive and compelling, and despite the story, you'll enjoy the process.
Sure. Very nicely summed up. Yeah, I might give it a go anyway and just see how I get on with it, because I do love puzzles. And I feel like I've played everything.
Yeah.
But also, it's worth saying, it's on, as you mentioned at the top, it's on Game Pass at the moment. So if you have Game Pass and you're curious, why the heck not? Great. So that brings us to the tasty rating, Tim. So, what would you give this out of 10?
I'm going to be quite generous on this because I enjoyed the gameplay so much, because I think it's quite innovative. Despite the horrendous story, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, because I think if you enjoy puzzles, it's definitely worth your while.
All right. Yeah, that was a lot more generous than I thought you were going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate the story comment. Great. All right. We'll check it out. And when I play it, I'll let you know what I think.
Good. I think you'll enjoy it. I think you will.
Yeah. And then we can both whinge about the story together.
Exactly.
How about that?
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to me.
What domestica do you have for us?
Oh, the most domestica there is. This game is called Unpacking. And it's a game that is currently out on Nintendo Switch, Xbox One. I played it on Xbox Series X because it's on Game Pass. Good old Game Pass. It's on Mac, it's on Windows, it's on Linux. Oh my god, that one mulled wine has done me. I don't think it's on PlayStation. I don't think it is. But it's developed by Witchbeam and published by Humble Bundle. And it came out this year. in November, I think. Haven't got a date. Why didn't I write the date down? I think it was like the 9th of November, something like that. Beginning of November, anyway.
So tell us about it in a neatly packaged transportable box.
Yay! I'm going to put it in a tiny little sweet kind of present box.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a game about the familiar experience of pulling possessions out of boxes. It's a kind of half sort of block fitting puzzle, half kind of a unpacking, decorating sim type of game, and you're basically creating a home by clearing and emptying boxes and putting things away in the places they're meant to be in.
Okay,
that for the nutshell.
This sounds like some organisation stuff that I know you enjoy. Is there a story to it? As we get
I'll
gameplay
get to that
as well.
So let me tell you, before I get to the story and the gameplay, let me tell you what I expected it to be.
Okay.
I expected this to be an unpacking sim, like literally just unpack stuff and rearrange your house. That's what I expected it to be. And I expected it to be very relaxing, very chill, have some sweet music, be really cute. I just banged the mic. Sorry about that. So that was my expectation. I thought this will be a really chill game. And I love, again, listeners, if you've been with the podcast for a while, you know I love game admin. I love doing admin in games. I find it very relaxing. So yeah, that was my expectation going in. But then when I started playing it is that, but there is not an element, I mean, it's kind of an element of puzzling, but not really a puzzle. There are just points where you start unpacking boxes and you think you're done and you're not, because things aren't in the right place and you can't progress until everything's in a suitable place. So there's not just one option for each object. There's certain options, but those objects have to be in certain areas of the house or the room. And this basically spans, I think it's 20 years, 95 to 2015 in the life of the character that you follow. And you follow them from being a small child to being an adult. And it's really hard to talk about what the story, because part of the game, which you learn, which I did not expect at all, is that this is really a narrative game, and the narrative is revealed through unpacking things. And it's just so gorgeous. Like, I'm actually getting emotional thinking about it. You don't realise, I think most of us have moved house at least once. Many of us multiple times, several times a year if you're renting. We all understand like the concept of unpacking and what you take with you and what you don't. But because this spans sort of 20 years, you really feel attached to certain objects. And as you find yourself in a new place, so you might be in a flat, you might be in a dorm room or a bedroom or a house or cohabiting, you only know what's come with you once you start taking things out of the box. And you start becoming really attached to certain objects. Like a particular stuffed toy, which is on the cover, comes with you, and you're so happy to see it every time it comes out. And you're always like, is it going to be there? Is it going to be there? Like when you're unpacking the boxes, you get really attached to it. And I think what the game, and I'm moving into what I find really positive about this game, what it does so successfully is really show you that what we have often makes us feel at home because of its sort of emotional. It's not what's the word? It's not materialistic, basically. It's not a materialistic game, but what we have and the things that you keep are really important to who you are. And I did not expect to get that sort of level of deepness from the game. And the clues that you get about who you are, how you feel, how you are physically, like nothing is obvious. And I found that some of the choices made in the narrative that unfolds, again, I don't want to spoil anything at all, because this is the game. It's finding out who you are. But what you discover is so unexpected. And I found myself like quite pleasantly surprised by some of the character choices that are revealed. This game really is a joy, like an absolute joy to play. It's really relaxing as well, so it just feels like such an absolutely beautiful experience to live with this person as they go through moving from place to place.
Can I ask you a little bit more about like how in the game you discover that things are in the wrong place or that they have a history? Like, is there a narrative voiceover, or is it text you read, or is it kind of more abstractly inferred? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, it's literally just music and boxes in rooms, and you just unpack stuff. So there'll just be, like, you start in a kid's bedroom, and there's some stuff already on surfaces, and then there's some empty drawers and some empty cupboards, and you just unpack things and put them where you think they go. And then as you move through the game, like at some point you're cohabiting, so there's another person's stuff there, so you can choose what of theirs you move, and some things don't move and some things do. And sometimes you'll place your thing in an area that you think it should go, and then when you've unpacked everything, it should move on. Like, you get a kind of like reward music, and then you basically got a photo album that marks every house or place you've lived in, and when you complete it, it kind of takes a photo of your finished house, and then it moves on to the next time period. But it won't do that if a few things are out of place. And what happens is you get a kind of flashing red outline on certain objects. And what that does is, like, I'll take the cohabiting as an example. And this, isn't really a spoiler, but for example, there's certain places that your stuff can't go when you're cohabiting, and you don't really realise that. And the fact that it can't go there might imply something about the character you're living with, for example. And things like that. So it's quite interesting the way that there's a few objects that you're like, and things are in the wrong box all the time. That's really fun as well. Like, you'll just have a pepper pot in the bathroom box. And
for some reason, that happens.
Yeah, like or so like a vitamin pot or something. It's just like always in the bathroom box.
A lot of the narrative is kind of filled in for you, I suppose, rather than kind of spelled out. Like, you're creating it yourself in a way.
Yeah, you are inferring everything. So there's a few things that I think you might not draw the same conclusion. Like, if you play it, there might be a few things that you don't draw the same conclusion as I do. But I think most of it, by the end, you're like, okay, that happened. But there's a few subtle things that's been added in. And I remember when I was playing with Alex, like, I spotted something that was that needed to go by the door, and I was like, this character is this. Like there was something that I spotted, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting choice, and that's not something that I would have thought of, but I'm really glad they did that. Just things, and the older they get, like the medicines they have and things like that, like all give clues about who they are, right? What they have in their kitchen.
I mean, personally, I do keep pepper in my bathroom. That's the choice I make. I mean,
I can't remember if it was pepper, but there was always something in the bathroom that looked like a kind of pot of pepper, and it was always in the wrong place.
Look, I'm just saying, if you've never tried a sneeze poo, give it a go. Pepper in the bathroom. Useful tool to have. All right. Is there anything else like you really liked about it you want to talk about before we go on to any negatives?
I love the music. The music was just beautiful. And it did this sort of sweet thing. I don't know if it would maybe not appeal to some people, but it would play a track, and then when the track was done, if you were still unpacking, it just gave you sort of ambient sound for a while. And sometimes you'd hear birds outside, or it'd just be like an empty house, and then after time it would start the music again. I'm still humming the music, and I finished it a week ago. It's just really cute. It's quite pixely, the game. I'm not down with my bits, like 32-bit, maybe?
Some bits, kind of a bunch of bits.
It's a bit bitty. Like, it's a bit bitty. It looks a bit retro, and you can play around with the filters, so you can make it look sort of sepia, or play around with it. But I liked how it came. I liked the out the box filter, and the music is slightly retro as well. It's very sort of arcadey, but it's really sweet. Like, it's really nice music. Yeah.
Nice. any downsides to unpacking? I mean, the obvious downside to unpacking is have you got your internet set up yet? Because the first thing you want to do is plug in your devices and whack on a Spotify playlist as you get to unpacking. But in the game version, were there any negatives?
Oh god, I knocked the mic again. I do apologise, listeners. The only real big one for me, and I got over it, it's just you can't get everything out at once. So sometimes you want to get everything out. The one that really annoyed me is the pants and socks. When you're putting away pants and socks, they come out one at a time. Oh. And I don't know, Tim, if you're like me, I want the matching ones to go next to each other. That's just a thing for me. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'd be like, oh, I'm done with pants and socks. And then my drawer would be all organised, and then I'd move on. I'd do a few coats, and then there'd be more pants and socks. I'd be like, oh my God. So that was annoying. But I also can see why they did it one item at a time, because the items that you're waiting to see, oh, did I bring this figurine with me again? Have I got this book with me again? It is kind of more special when you don't expect it to come out, and then you're like, oh yeah, it's there, you get all happy. Mm-hmm, so yeah, I can see why they did it, but it is annoying because you are doing tedious unpacking as well. Really, the pants and socks were very boring to unpack. Didn't enjoy that.
They could have at least added some specialness to the pants. They could have made it clear that one of the pairs of pants is pretty special, or have some novelty socks that look they have big cool bunny rabbit ears and stuff. Oh
yeah, they have some funky designs. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's definitely there's bows and love hearts and funny little slippers and stuff. It is nice. It feels real. You get. There's a few matching pairs of socks, and then there's an odd one and stuff. I think that, and maybe also very occasionally, I'd want to zoom in a bit more so I could really make out what something was. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Especially there was some little pots of, I don't know if they were cream, I don't know if they were ointment, I don't know if they were pills that were usually in the bathroom, and some of them weren't meant to go in the bathroom and some were, but I couldn't see what they were.
Could have been yogurt.
Well, quite. It could have been jam. I don't know, because it was in a jar. I mean, who knows? But yeah, sometimes I wanted to zoom in a bit more, but when you zoomed in, because it's quite pixely, you couldn't always tell. But I mean,
Sure.
Minimal things.
All right, yeah. Who is this game for?
I really think that I would recommend this to everyone, but I don't think everyone would pick it up. But here's why they should.
Okay.
This game looks really twee on the surface, and maybe some people would find it quite twee, but it's such a moving, relaxing, sweet experience as a playthrough. And then on top of that, you've got this really moving story, right? So it's an unexpected story revealed in a way that I've never seen a story revealed before. And you never feel passive. So yeah, sure, there's times when you're just unpacking socks, but you never feel passive because you don't know what's going to come out of the box next. Mm-hmm. And you feel responsible for making this person's life better. And it's just such a nice, you have a symbiotic relationship with the character, even though you never meet them, you never see them. It's just always an empty room that you're putting stuff in. So I think what they've done there is kind of magical and kind of beautiful. And I just think if you want a game that you can get through in maybe 3-4 hours, that's just really relaxing, you can dip in and out of it, just play it. It's lovely. If you like a sim, definitely play it as well.
Nice. I like that we've both accidentally come up with sort of sim-like scenarios.
Yeah, right?
Yours is quite relaxing and mine's really frustrating and suspenseful. the two edges of domesticity. All right, have you got a score for us?
Yeah, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. I think it's a beautiful game. It's just really lovely. If anything, there could have just been more.
More. Always wanting more. Leave them wanting more. Oh, good.
Lovely. I'm feeling parched, Tim. Is it time for Tim's tasty tips?
Listen, I've nailed it this week. I've got the ideal drink that actually covers both games. What? That is the box of wine.
Oh, yes. Very good.
Get your 5 litres of wine in a cardboard box from the supermarket. And not only is it easily transportable for all your unpacking needs, it's ideal if you're moving into a new house for transport, and to then celebrate being in your new house and unpacking that box of wine. And on the other side, if you do then consume all of the wine, you will get blackout drunk, wake up tomorrow and have forgotten everything, so you can live your life like you're on a time loop.
I was going to say, if you drink enough of it at a high enough speed, it might repeat on you the next day as well.
Yeah, exactly. If you can do it in 12 minutes, 12 minutes, all the best.
Neck it.
Box of wine.
We did that once, Tim.
I'm saying nothing. There's no evidence, my lord.
I'm just going to say, I recall with Law and I the drinking game with a box of rosé.
Oh, God, with Nail and I.
Yeah.
That film has a lot to answer for. If I ever meet Richard E. Grant, I'm going to tell him about that.
Yeah. So that was Tim's Tasty Tipples. So a box of wine for both games. Well done, Tim.
Thank you.
And if you want a bonus drinking game, the With Noel and I drinking game, how does it work, Tim?
Oh, drink every time they do. There's a version
Good
of the
luck.
game. There's a version of the game which I'm going to say no one has ever played, which is where you have to copy their drinks. If you do that, you will die. I did the research. You will die if you do that. So, just pick a nice wine or a lager or something and go along with them.
And have plenty of water breaks.
Yeah. And if you make it as far as Uncle Monty's house, you've done well.
Yeah, I think we blacked out at Uncle Monty's house.
Who knows what happened to Uncle Monty's house? The subject of 12 Minutes, part 2.
Oh, well, there we go. You basically got 3 games out of us, so a bonus game. Excellent. Well, I'm already crying a little bit just remembering the nostalgia and also the emotion of my game. Thank you very much. I can't stop.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it too. Now we're at the end. I'm going to put my willy away because it is getting cold, being as it's winter, but it's tradition. Have to get it out.
For anyone who didn't understand the Willem Dafoe thing, he's just in a lot of films with his willy out. Like, it's just, I feel like the last few films I've seen him in, he's either naked, having sex, or simulating sex. It's just,
sure.
It's become his career.
Anyway, mine's away, so I'm gonna put it and me to bed now.
Good. Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of My Turn Podcast. Please share if you like what you hear, subscribe, and if you give us a 5-star review on iTunes, we'll give you a shout out in the next episode. How's that?
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, sounds pretty good too. All right, we will catch you next time. Stay warm, get festive. Goodbye.
Bye.